Hey, this is Todd. I wanted to spend a little bit of time today streaming about a topic that I think comes up. I see questions about it come up now and again, sometimes in reference to the general topic of working with monsters, whether it's from 5th edition sources or from OSR or classic sources, or specific monsters. And what made me think about this was a question came up on Facebook. I think it was Facebook, might have been Reddit maybe last week about the Succubus. Someone was looking at the Succubus for their OSR game, specifically the classic Monster Manual Succubus entry, and had a question about their powers. They didn't quite understand how to use their powers or what their powers were for. And I think the reason why they were confused about that is because, particularly with sources like the Monster Manual back then, they didn't give you a lot of information. You had to sort of read between the lines a fair amount to figure out what a monster was about, how they were supposed to be used. And part of that is for I think for creatures like the succubus is because I think when they wrote this, I don't know who exactly. Here it says Gary Gygax with his team of D.A. Trampier, Tom Wham, Gene Wells. I think they thought that their audience at this point knew what a succubus was, had either heard the term or knew it from mythology or other background. So they didn't feel the need to delve too much into what a succubus was or what it was trying to do. They kind of got right into, its abilities and maybe a bit about its looks. And hey, here, let me just go ahead. I will read to you. This is from Monster Manual, first one, the original. I'm not going to read through its stat block. I'm just going to read the text, but I'll go into the stat block a little bit because that's where we can kind of see a little bit. We can sort of try to look at what their thinking is. But here they go. These female demons are usually not found in numbers, for they prefer to act alone. A succubus in its natural form appears very much like a tall and very beautiful human female, although the bat like wings immediately show the observer its true character. Succubi cannot be harmed by any sort of normal weaponry. Succubus can cause darkness in a 5-foot radius. The kiss of the succubus drains the victim of one energy level, and all succubi are able to perform any one of the following feats at will: become ethereal, as if using the oil of that name, charm person, ESP, clairaudience, suggestion as the spell, shape change to any humanoid form of approximately their own height and weight only, or gate in a type 4, 70% chance, type 6, 25% chance, or one of the lords or princes, 5% chance. There is only a 40% chance of such a gate opening, however. Succubi rule lower demons through wit and threat. Now we look at this and maybe we're thinking of it if our hypothetical situation is we're looking for a demon for an encounter or some other situation. The succubus, you know, can we use this? Or maybe we're just looking for inspiration. We want to know kind of what the succubus is about. That's what they give us. So this doesn't really tell us anything about what a succubus tries to do or what it's aiming to do. Back in the day, I think they thought that we had mythological sources. These days, I pulled up the Wikipedia entry so we could see from that standpoint what a succubus, or at least what the Wikipedia authors are calling a succubus. So I'm just going to read from that. A succubus is a demon in female form or supernatural entity in folklore, traced back to medieval legend, that appears in dreams and takes the form of a woman in order to seduce men, usually through sexual activity. The male counterpart to the succubus is the incubus. Religious traditions hold that repeated sexual activity with a succubus may result in the deterioration or of health or mental state, or even death. In modern representations, the succubus may or may not appear in dreams and is often depicted as a highly attractive seductress or enchantress, whereas in the past, succubi were generally depicted as frightening or demonic. So there we have in broad strokes what the succubus is about. It's an enchantress or enchanter. It is a seducer or seductress. That's what it's doing. Now, I bring this up because oftentimes I think when the person who posted on Reddit or Facebook about it, they were looking purely at kind of combat. And what they were trying to do is break down the abilities that I listed from the Monster Manual entry in terms of how does this work in combat? How many rounds would it take to do that? Does this take an action, or is this something that they can just do as sort of a free action, or how does that work? But that's kind of missing the larger point about what the succubus is, which is they're not combat oriented. They probably shouldn't be getting into combat. Now, the Monster Manual doesn't tell us this, but there are some hints. So one of the things it says at the bottom, succubi rule lower demons through wit and threat, which is clearly an indication that they're not trying to bully or fight these lower demons. They're using their seductive skills through wit and threat, maybe because that they have, they can use that gate spell, that gate ability to bring in powerful demons to help them, which would, obviously be a big threat to lower demons. If you don't do what I say, I'm going to summon a type 6 demon to come and kick your littler demon butt. So that's a one clue. Okay. Succubi, they're not combat powerhouses. Another clue in their stat block itself is it talks about, okay, so they have some magical resistance, great. Can't hit them with normal weapons, also good. They can be ethereal, also good. But when you look at their attacks, other than that energy drain, which they have to kiss to do, they have two attacks. All right, that's reasonable. Damage per attack 1 to 3. Okay, so we're talking 1d4 minus 1 or 1d, or a d3 if you have it. 1 to 3 damage per attack each. So at best, with their two attacks on one person, they can hit you for 6 damage. It's not going to cut it. And given their other abilities, they don't have some big Nova explosive attack or some other. This is not like, well, their claws aren't good, but then they can bite you for a bazillion damage. No. Again, when we go back to their powers, Charm Person, which is in older editions particularly extremely powerful, but it's not a, not necessarily really a combat ability. ESP, again, not a combat ability. Clairaudience, not a combat ability. Suggestion, like Charm Person, you could use it in combat and it can be defensive and it can, be evasive or potentially try to get one of your attackers to attack other people or something like that, but not really an offensive kind of power. Shape change, but to it's the humanoid forms, not really going to be game changing. It has to be their own kind of size, so you're not transforming into a titan or something like that. And then that gating ability. But remember, it only has a 40% chance of working, so they can't even count on that to really save them, or they have to sit there and potentially spend how many turns until they roll right, and then hope that they get maybe one of the more powerful demons, depending on the threat. So when you look at their powers, you look at their attack status, you look at the little bit of flavor text that you get, everything is saying here, this is not a combat oriented demon. And if we know from reading the Wikipedia page, the kind of folklore that maybe the creators expected you to know, we say that, okay, this is really a sneaky threat, right? This is the threat that you find when you're sleeping at the inn and something's happened and they kind of try to sneak in your room and seduce you. That's the kind of thing that a threat a succubus is. If a succubus is standing there trying to go toe to toe with your party, that's a losing battle. They should not be doing that. And of course, they don't tell you don't do that. They don't tell you they can't do that. They just lay out, oh, here's what they can do. It's up to you as the GM to read through this, read between the lines, and say, wow, if I put this succubus in combat, unless I really beef her up or give her something, she doesn't have much of a chance. She's got some resistance that might help her survive for a bit. The thing about magic weapons is going to help her survive a bit, only to a point. Because remember, back in the day, you could get magical weapons really fast. By second, third, fourth level, you're probably going to have at least some +1 weapons lying around. So that may not even be that much of a deterrent. They do have a good armor class 0, so it's hard to hit them, and they can go ethereal. But again, these are defensive. This is not an offensive powerhouse of a creature. What they do have is obviously they can seduce, they can charm, and I'll say it again, charm person, charm creature back in the day was a really powerful thing. They can bring out other demons, they can go ethereal, they can be really nasty, pain in the butt sort of opponent until you can corner them or somehow figure them out, either get them banished or whatever to get rid of them. And that's kind of, I think, how I would use a succubus. But it's really hard to get that when you're just looking at maybe their hit dice or you're looking at just their kind of abilities. It can be easy to think of it just in terms of, I think, like this person did of, oh, it's combat. Oh, it's a succubus. Okay, I got to figure out how this work in combat. Right. My answer was pretty much like I'm saying here. If they're in combat, that's probably a mistake on their part. That's something that they would not want to do. That's the last resort. That is oh, we've cornered them. We've got them inside a pentagram and they can't get out. They can't move. They can't do it. Now we're going to try to get them down before they hopefully don't gate in a bunch of demons. But I wanted to not only look at the, original one, but let's look at the 5th edition one because it's interesting to see the direction that 5th edition went with this kind of creature. and how we can maybe find a synthesis between the old school version that I think has a bit more flavor in a sense and the new school version. So, Monster Manual, Monster Manual, page it's 285, I guess. And here they're not even listed under demons like in the old one. They are listed under its own entry. So just to show this, we've got a lot more flavor style text. Higher. We got a whole half page flavor text and then the stat block. I want to go over the stat block first. So here we go. It's got 66 hit points this time. The original one had, I don't know, it was a 6 hit die. What was that? I guess so. This one has more. This is essentially 12 hit dice, but the armor class is much less. Armor class 0 would be something like armor class 20, kind of something around there, whereas this is only armor class 15. They do have some damage resistances, which the other one didn't. Of course, the other one had magic resistance and could only be harmed by magic weapons. This one has resistances to a whole bunch of stuff. Cold, fire, lightning, poison, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons. But I think it's right. They're not immune. It's just resistance. So I think that means it's like five less, something like that. I can never remember that stuff without looking it up. They do have dark vision, pretty good passive perception. They're challenge 4. So you went from a 6 hit die creature, roughly like a 6 CR creature to 4. So they're less. So here we go. Let's go into their powers that they've been given. Telepathic bond. The fiend ignores the range restriction on its telepathy. When communicating with a creature it has charmed. Okay. They don't even need to be on the same plane. All right. So that's really just for charming. And its other one's got shape change, shape changer. The fiend can use its action to polymorph into a small or medium humanoid or back into its true form. Without wings, the fiend loses its flying speed. Okay, makes sense. Other than its size and speed, its statistics are the same in each form. Any equipment it is wearing or carrying isn't transformed. It reverts to its true form if it dies. Okay, so that's not terribly different than the shape change it had before. Now it's got actions. Only in its original fiend form, it has a claw, +5 to hit. It's 6 slashing damage. 1d6 plus 3 with a average of 6. Charm. One humanoid the fiend can see within 30 feet of it must succeed on a DC 15 wisdom saving throw or be magically charmed for 1 day. So, back in the day, charm could go on for a long time. So, this, like all things, it's been kind of weakened a bit, nerfed, if you want to call it. So, here it's a day, but a day is still pretty strong. The charmed target obeys the fiend's verbal or telepathic commands. If the target suffers any harm or receives a suicidal command, it can repeat the saving throw, ending the effect on a success. If the target successfully saves against the effect, or if the effect on it ends, the target is immune to this fiend's charm for the next 24 hours. The fiend can have only one target charmed at a time. If it charms another, the effect on the previous one ends, which is not a distinction that the old school one had. If the old school one, it could charm as much as it wanted to. So this is, I guess, this is theoretically a weaker version than the one in the books. So it has a weaker version of the charm. And we have the draining kiss. The fiend kisses a creature charmed by it or a willing creature. The target must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw against this magic, taking 32 psychic damage on a failed save, 5d10 plus 5, 32 being the average, or half as much damage on a successful one. The target's hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the damage taken. This reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. The target dies if this effect reduces its hit point maximum to 0. Okay. And then it's got the etherealness. The fiend magically enters the ethereal plane from the material plane or vice versa. So from the old one to the new one, it's lost the ability to gate in other demons, which I think is kind of a cool ability. And if we're looking at how we might synthesize these, I might want to bring them back. But just looking at this one, so it's got the etherealness, it's got the kiss. It's interesting that I would have thought that the draining kiss would have actually benefited the succubus. I can't see. Does it say that in this one if it can or not? It just says energy drain. Excuse me. So maybe it doesn't. But that might be something I would just maybe house rule in that it can. Let's see. The kiss drains the dis. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't say what happens to that energy. I might have it that it rejuvenates the succubus, since I kind of feeling it in the thematically with this type of creature. The creature that stays young when something else ages. It kind of makes sense to me a little bit, but it's not neither one, so I can't fault the fifth edition version for not having it. So it's got still got the energy drain, got the etherealness, missing some of the other abilities, but it's got the main ones. They kept kind of the main core. Now, the thing that the fifth edition one gives that the earlier one doesn't is it's got this whole, just to show it again, half page of flavor text, which hopefully gives us a little bit more background on what a succubus is about. Succubi and incubi inhabit all of the lower planes, and the lascivious dark-winged fiends can be found in service of devils, demons, night hags, rakshasas, and yugoloths. So here they call them a fiend, but they actually seem to they work for all comers, not just demons, but devils and other things as well. Asmodeus, ruler of the nine hells, uses these fiends to tempt mortals to perform evil acts. The demon lord Grazd keeps succubi and incubi as advisors and consorts. Okay, and it says, basically succubi can become incubi, and I guess they can just transform, they can just change their sex, their gender, whenever they want, which is cool. Beautiful corruptors, a succubus or incubus first appears in ethereal form, passing through walls like a ghost to lurk next to a mortal's bedside and whisper forbidden pleasures. Sleeping victims are tempted to give in to their darkest desires, indulge in taboos, and feed forbidden appetites. As the fiend fills the victim's dream with debauched images, the victim becomes more susceptible to temptation in everyday life. Inevitably, the fiend enters the mortal realm in tempting form to directly influence a creature's actions. Appearing in the guise of a humanoid who has previously appeared only in the victim's dreams, the succubus or incubus seduces or befriends its victim, indulging all its desires so that it performs evil acts of its own free will. A mortal bequeaths its soul to the fiend not by formal pledge or contract. Instead, when a succubus or incubus has corrupted a creature completely, some say by causing the creature to commit the three betrayals of thought, word, and deed, the victim's soul belongs to the fiend. The more virtuous the fiend's prey, the longer the corruption takes, but the more rewarding the downfall. After successfully corrupting a victim, the succubus or incubus kills it, and the tainted soul descends into the lower planes. The succubus or incubus resorts to charming a victim magically only when necessary, usually as a form of self defense. A charmed creature isn't responsible for its actions, so forcing it to behave against its will won't bring the fiend closer to the ultimate prize, the victim's soul. And then it goes in about the deadly kiss. The kiss of a succubus or incubus is an echo of the emptiness that is the fiend's longing for a corrupted soul. Likewise, the recipient of the fiend's kiss gains no satisfaction from it, experiencing only pain and the profound emptiness that the fiend imparts. The kiss is nothing short of an attack, usually delivered as a final farewell before the fiend escapes. And then just a little note, well, not a little, I mean, it's the same as Deadly Kiss, but fiendish offspring, succubi and incubi can reproduce with one another to spawn more of their kind. Less commonly, a succubus or incubus reproduces with a humanoid. From this unholy union, a cambion child is conceived. Invariably, the fiendish offspring is as wicked as its fiendish parent. So what I really want to get into with this, and it's a really good block of text, right? Got some really great stuff in it. Unfortunately, none of that stuff is in the stat block. So if you do like a lot of people do, and you're looking things up using an online index or something else, you're looking for things of a certain CR for your party or something you need, and you go right to the stat block, you miss maybe the most important stuff in either the old or the new one about the succubus, because in that text it really beautifully lays out what a succubus does, kind of how it does it, and what its purpose is, right? The succubus isn't someone that's just sitting in a lair going and waiting for parties to come and kill it. It's out there doing this kind of down and dirty work, trying to seduce people to the dark side to get them to do evil acts and then take possession of their souls, which is really well done. Now, unfortunately, all this in here, all this great stuff, has no impact on its stats at all. There's nothing in its stats about any of this stuff, about invading people's dreams or doing that kind of subtleness. We don't know if they're doing that, what power that might use. We don't know what kind of save that might be. There's no mechanical foundation for any of this. Now, which is fine if we're using it on NPCs, right? If maybe there's a plot we want to have, there's a story we may want to tell, there's an adventure we have in mind in which we have a succubus has taken up residence in a village and on a certain guise, and it's corrupting all these people, then as long as they're just dealing with NPCs, we can just kind of, play with that and just say, okay, this is happening. If we want to have this come direct contact with the party, it would be really nice to have some basis for what it is, because it can't be charm, because they just already told us that if it's charming them, that's kind of its last resort, and charming them to do bad things does not actually turn them to the dark side because they're charmed. They don't have free will. So it's important to have this. What I think something about these dreams, like how would you mechanize this sort of dream invasion kind of angle? Really interesting stuff. But you have to have read this, and unfortunately, because it's not in the stat block, you might very well miss it. Might just go over your head, or yeah, you just miss it. So it's not there. So all you look at are these things. So I guess to say it's really important with these materials to read through everything that they give you on it, because unless you have a real idea in your brain about succubi and how you want to use them, I think oftentimes we don't. There are lots of creatures in here that maybe come from mythologies or folklores that, I'm not familiar with, you may not be familiar with, and so we don't have this basis of what it is. We might just run to the stat block, and the stat block is usually all about combat. That's really when your stat blocks come out. Maybe a little bit about perception, maybe about a skill, but really the stat block comes down to this is what I'm going to run into when I actually fight it. But in the case of the succubus, it is not about fighting. It's about doing this other stuff that they talk about in the text. It's about, if you're looking the older version, it's about just the hints of what they're telling you in the text, right? What, or and almost what it's not telling you. It's not telling you that it's a combat powerhouse. It's not telling you that it has all kinds of crazy abilities to kill things. All its abilities are about being sneaky, being stealthy, getting away from trouble, calling reinforcements if absolutely necessary, and then charming and kissing people. So with the old version, you got to kind of read between the lines and say, okay, looking at that, what is it missing? It's missing a bunch of combat stuff, or stuff that would make it powerful in combat. Therefore, I shouldn't be putting this in combat. Reading the new version, it's like, okay, great. It's got some combat stuff and I can run it that way. But really, what I need to be doing is looking at that beautiful corruptors and reading about that in the text to find out how I should be using that. Now, I've read through pretty much all the monster manuals at various one times or another. I don't know if I'm sure not every creature is going to get this nice right up, like right next to the succubus is the sturge, which doesn't really have too much about it because it doesn't need it. It's just kind of okay. They live, they blood drain, and they can be annoying and deadly, but there's not a lot of nuance to it because it doesn't need it. It's just a drop in predatory creature. Whereas the succubus, it has more to it. So it's you kind of got to learn to sort of look at these monsters and see what they're telling you. If you're looking at classic sources, see what they are not telling you as much as what they are telling you. Go ahead and look at Wikipedia or other sources where it might give you some of that background, and particularly for the old versions where they don't tell you anything at all and they kind of expect you to know it. You to go and look at a source, pull out a folklore book, pull out Wikipedia, pull out something and say, okay, what is this creature? So I get a better idea of what they are. Again, fifth edition, at least the Succubus has a nice write up about it. But then maybe we have to take this write up and figure something. Maybe we have to add some abilities. Now, the original one had suggestion, which might be something we could lean on for if you're whispering at somebody who's dreaming. Suggestion seems a good one, but that might fall under the charm sequence. So maybe we need to come up with our own little mini ability, say called dream shaping, in which a succubus, if it comes across someone who's dreaming, it can try to affect that dream, try to manipulate the dream to get to where it's what it needs to do. Just to look at that. So let's say, okay, we're gonna have this ability dream shaping. All right, so we're gonna deal with the fifth edition succubus. So we have that. We're gonna say, okay, it's got this ability dream shaping. So we know that draining kiss has a DC 15. Charm has a DC 15. So maybe it makes sense that this dream shaping ability would also have a DC of 15. Then we think about what dream shaping is. It's manipulating the dream to take it from whatever the victim is thinking and sort of pulling it or pulling the influence of the succubus into it so that they can shape it and get them. Remember what they talked about in the text. Let's see, what's it say here? To getting the victims to tempt them to give into their darkest desires, indulge in taboos, and feed forbidden appetites. So I'm going to say that's a wisdom type save. To me, the wisdom is that common sense of saying, like, yeah, there's something wrong here. It's not right. So I would say that for this dreaming ability, I would say it's a DC 15 wisdom save. If they fail, then the succubus is able to influence the dreams to create these situations with the desires and things like that. Now, in a game situation with an NPC, at that point we're done. We take an NPC, we could have them roll a die to see if the succubus succeeds or not, and then we can just role play the consequences of this character having played the dreams through. Now, with a player character is a little bit different. I don't know that I want to make the DC or make the save just to include all the desires and stuff. What I really want is okay, if they make the save, they recognize there's kind of a weird influence on their dreams. Maybe they wake up, have a chance to spot the ethereal or physical manifestation of the succubus when it's in the room, something like that. If they fail, then maybe there's a situation, and this is when I'd want to use this with care. I'd want to know, have an idea what these characters are about. If they have stuff in their backstory that would fit into struggles that they're having. I had a video yesterday and I streamed the other day about talking about flaws and ideals. Maybe we pull on one of those flaws or ideals and kind of try to twist it in some way. But I wouldn't just want to be like you fail to save, and so now you're having fantasies of doing forbidden stuff. Maybe I'd want to take the player's side and say, okay, you're having a dream and this, the other. Maybe I would say, sure, you have a dream and this happens, and let them just interpret it. But you want to be careful with this type of ability with player characters because you easily get into railroading territory. You don't want it to be that they're failing saves now. Suddenly they're doing evilness. Now suddenly they've rolled three failed saves and their soul belongs to the succubus, right? So you got to treat it with care. The idea here is probably for the player characters, it's not going to ultimately change them because they're going to figure it out, even on a meta level of I'm having weird dreams about killing and whatever, and oh, this isn't right. And then suddenly this person's in the street. But you can also have a lot of fun with it if you just give them some kind of cryptic thing. Oh, you dream of this beautiful man or woman, and then remember this is part of the succubus's plan. They have some dreams like that you're trickling in, and then they are in the town or wherever, and they run into that man or woman. They may think it's totally meaningful in a different way than it is, and then adventurers being adventurers, their instincts to do murderous deeds, and then suddenly they have this man or woman in distress or in need of assistance, or however the succubus tends to play it. They might pave their own road of evil deeds without you having to get into them, making them feel like they failed somehow. You can have a lot of fun with it. So maybe I'll do some more of these. If you have a creature or monster that you want me to take a look at, I can either pull from the old, I can pull from the new one. What I like to do is pull them both together and see kind of how ideals of these monsters have changed, maybe how we can put them together. Let me know. Thanks for watching. Hey, I'm trying to get into the affiliate program on Twitch. So if you like these, please give me a follow, help me out. Again, always on YouTube, it helps if you want to give this one a thumbs up and follow me and hit the little bell so that you can get uh, notified when I post up new videos. But all that aside, you can find me on all over the place: Reddit, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, wherever. So wherever you find me, you know, say, hey, I saw your videos, or give me a follow and let me know how you found me. But hope you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you later.